November 14th, 1943. Bougainville Island, Solomon Islands. The jungle canopy filtered morning light into gray-green half-darkness. Private First Class Jack Mitchell, 3rd Marine Division, crouched in a foxhole dug into volcanic soil that still steamed from yesterday's rain. 200 yards downslope, Japanese forces held a defensive position anchored on a concrete bunker that had survived 3 days of naval bombardment. Mitchell's platoon had been pinned for 6 hours. Every attempt to advance drew immediate fire from the bunker's firing ports. Artillery couldn't touch it. The angle was wrong. Air support couldn't see through the canopy. The Marines were stuck. Mitchell shifted position, bringing his rifle to bear. The weapon looked wrong. It didn't match the M1 Garands carried by every other Marine in the foxhole. The stock was darker, the barrel longer, the action different. His squad mates had mocked it since Guadalcanal. They called it the mail-order rifle because Mitchell had assembled it himself from parts purchased through civilian catalogs before the war. They'd laughed when he'd insisted on bringing it instead of accepting standard-issue equipment. They'd stopped laughing 2 hours ago when Mitchell had killed 4 Japanese soldiers in 6 shots, each hit at ranges where the M1's open sights were useless. What Mitchell's squad didn't know, what the Marine Corps armorers who'd tried to confiscate his rifle hadn't understood, was that Mitchell had built something that shouldn't have worked in combat. A precision target rifle assembled from mail-order components designed for competitive shooting at 1,000 yards, modified for military service through improvisation and obstinacy. The rifle wasn't regulation. It violated half a dozen equipment protocols. But it could kill at ranges where standard infantry weapons became ineffective. And Mitchell was about to demonstrate exactly how much difference that capability made in jungle warfare. The story begins not in the Solomon Islands, but in rural Montana in 1938, where a 17-year-old high school student discovered that he could shoot better than anyone in his county and couldn't afford a rifle that matched his skill. Jack Mitchell had grown up hunting deer and elk in the mountains west of Billings. His father, a railroad mechanic, owned a Winchester Model 70 in 30-06 that young Jack borrowed for hunting season. By age 15, Mitchell was consistently hitting game at 300 yards, ranges where most hunters wouldn't attempt shots. By 16, he'd won the local sportsman's club competition 3 years running. The Winchester was a fine rifle, but it wasn't his, and precision shooting required equipment matched to the shooter's specific needs. Custom rifles in 1938 cost between $300 and $500, equivalent to 4 months' wages for a railroad mechanic. Mitchell couldn't afford custom work, but he'd discovered that rifle components, actions, barrels, stocks, triggers, could be purchased individually through mail-order catalogs at a fraction of custom rifle costs. Brownells, Pacific Tool Company, and half a dozen smaller suppliers offered parts that, if correctly assembled, could produce rifles matching custom shop quality. The theoretical challenge was that assembling a precision rifle required machining skills, specialized tools, and gunsmithing knowledge that Mitchell didn't possess. The practical challenge was that Mitchell was stubborn, mechanically gifted, and had access to his father's machine shop, where the railroad maintained locomotive components. Between his father's lathe, his high school shop teacher's guidance, and mail-order catalogs, Mitchell believed he could build a competition-grade rifle for under $100. He ordered the components in spring 1938. A Springfield 1903 Action purchased as military surplus for $12, a Douglas barrel in 30-06, 26 inches long, heavy contour for target work, $35, a Bishop stock, semi-finished walnut requiring final shaping, $18, a Lyman target sight, adjustable for windage and elevation, $15, triggers, springs, screws, and small components from various suppliers, another $12. Total cost, $92. The parts arrived over 6 weeks, shipped in individual packages that accumulated in Mitchell's bedroom. The assembly took 3 months, Mitchell had to learn chamber reaming, head spacing, stock inletting, and trigger adjustment through trial and error. The high school shop teacher, a World War I veteran named Thomas Crawford, who'd served as an armorer in France, provided guidance but insisted Mitchell do the work himself. Crawford's philosophy was that a shooter who couldn't maintain his own equipment didn't deserve precision weapons. The first assembly failed. Mitchell's head spacing was incorrect, causing the bolt to bind. He disassembled the rifle, researched the problem through correspondence with Pacific Tools Technical Service, and reassembled it with corrected measurements. The second attempt succeeded. By August 1938, Mitchell had a functioning rifle that, when fired from sandbags at 100 yards, grouped 5 shots within 1 inch. This was competition-grade accuracy, achieved through mail-order parts and adolescent determination. Mitchell entered the Montana State Rifle Championship in September 1938, competing in the open division against shooters using custom rifles costing 10 times what he'd invested. He placed third, losing to 2 shooters who'd been competing for over a decade. The following year, he won the state championship and then qualified for the national matches at Camp Perry, Ohio, where he placed in the top 20% of competitors nationwide. The mail-order rifle worked. But Mitchell's rifle career was interrupted in December 1941 when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. He enlisted in the Marine Corps in January 1942, reporting to boot camp at San Diego with his custom rifle packed in his duffel bag. He intended to volunteer for Scout sniper training, where precision rifles were standard equipment. The Marine Corps had other plans. The Marine Corps in 1942 was expanding rapidly, training recruits at unprecedented rates to meet Pacific Theater demands. The standard infantry rifle was the M1 Garand, a semi-automatic weapon feeding from an 8-round clip, effective to 400 yards with iron sights. It was reliable, powerful, and designed for the kind of high-volume fire that infantry combat required. What it wasn't was precise. The M1 sights were adequate for man-sized targets at combat ranges, but weren't designed for the kind of accuracy that Mitchell's competition experience demanded. Mitchell requested assignment to the Scout Sniper School during boot camp. The request was denied. The Marine Corps had Scout Sniper positions, but they were allocated to experienced personnel, not fresh recruits. Mitchell would serve as a rifleman, carrying an M1 like everyone else. When he explained that he owned a superior rifle, the drill instructors were unimpressed. Regulations required standard equipment. Personal weapons weren't authorized. Mitchell argued he demonstrated his rifle's capabilities on the Camp Pendleton range, firing groups that the range officer initially didn't believe were possible with the given equipment. The range officer, a gunnery sergeant named Robert Hayes, who'd served in World War I, examined Mitchell's rifle with interest. Hayes understood precision shooting. He also understood Marine Corps regulations. Personal rifles weren't authorized for combat deployment. Mitchell could keep his rifle for recreation during stateside service, but it wouldn't deploy overseas. Mitchell's unit, the 3rd Marine Division, shipped to New Zealand in March 1943 for jungle warfare training before deployment to the Solomon Islands. Mitchell brought his rifle despite regulations, hiding it in his personal gear. When his platoon sergeant discovered the weapon during a barracks inspection in Auckland, New Zealand, Mitchell faced disciplinary action, unauthorized equipment, violation of deployment protocols. The rifle would be confiscated and shipped back to California for storage until Mitchell's return. Mitchell made a final argument. He requested permission to demonstrate the rifle's combat utility, proposing that if he could outshoot designated marksmen at extended ranges, the rifle should be authorized as supplementary equipment. The company commander, a captain named James Morrison, who'd fought at Guadalcanal and understood that jungle combat often involved long-range ambushes, agreed to a test. The test occurred at a New Zealand Army range in April 1943. Mitchell competed against the company's 3 designated marksmen, all carrying M1 rifles with the standard iron sights. The course of fire included targets at 300, 400, 500, and 600 yards.
At 300 yards, Mitchell and the marksmen achieved similar results, all hits centered mass. At 400 yards, the marksmen's groups opened up and hits scattered across the torso area. Mitchell's remained tight, all shots in a 6-inch circle. At 500 yards, the marksmen achieved 50% hits. Mitchell didn't miss. At 600 yards, the marksman couldn't reliably hit the target. Mitchell put 8 of 10 shots in the vital zone. Captain Morrison authorized Mitchell to carry his personal rifle in combat, with the stipulation that he also carry an M1 as backup. Mitchell would serve dual roles: standard rifleman when the situation required rapid fire, designated marksman when precision at range was necessary. The arrangement violated regulations, but Morrison had discretionary authority over his company's equipment allocation, and he recognized that jungle warfare rewarded adaptability over strict protocol compliance.
The 3rd Marine Division landed on Bougainville in November 1943 as part of Operation Cherry Blossom, the Allied campaign to neutralize Japanese air bases in the northern Solomon Islands. The landing was opposed. Japanese forces had fortified the island with concrete bunkers, prepared artillery positions, and defensive networks designed to bleed American forces through attrition. The terrain favored defense. Jungle vegetation limited visibility to 50 yards in most areas. The few clearings were pre-registered for Japanese artillery. Movement was slow, observation difficult, and standard infantry tactics often reduced to close-range firefights where superior marksmanship provided minimal advantage. Mitchell's rifle initially seemed irrelevant. The first week of combat involved close-quarters fighting, where the M1's rapid-fire capability was essential. Mitchell carried both weapons, used his M1 for most engagements, and kept the custom rifle secured in his pack. His squad mates continued mocking it. The mail-order rifle was dead weight, they suggested. This was jungle warfare, not target competition. The situation changed on November 14th during an assault on Japanese positions near the Coromocana River. Mitchell's platoon had been tasked with capturing a bunker complex that controlled access to the coastal road. The bunkers were mutually supporting, each covering the other's approaches. Standard assault tactics had failed. Every time Marines attempted to advance, Japanese defenders in one bunker would pin them, while others maneuvered for flanking fire. Mitchell's platoon was held up in a depression 200 yards from the primary bunker. The platoon sergeant, Robert Chen, was planning a third assault when Mitchell suggested an alternative. If he could suppress the bunker's firing ports from their current positions, the assault team could advance without being pinned. Chen was skeptical. 200 yards was beyond the effective M1 range for precision fire. Mitchell could shoot at the firing ports, but hitting them was another matter. Mitchell set up his custom rifle, using his pack as a rest. The bunker's firing ports were approximately 12 inches wide, visible as dark rectangles against concrete. Standard doctrine said you couldn't reliably hit a 12-inch target at 200 yards with iron sights in combat conditions. Mitchell's Lyman target sight wasn't iron. It was a precision aperture sight with fine adjustments, the same equipment that had won him competitions at 1,000 yards. 200 yards was close range. The first shot hit the left firing port's frame, and concrete chips sprayed. The Japanese soldier behind the port flinched back. Mitchell adjusted slightly and fired again. The second shot went through the port. Movement stopped. Mitchell shifted to the second port and fired twice, both hits. The third port, 3 shots, 2 hits, 1 miss that struck close enough to discourage return fire. The assault team moved. Without suppressing fire from the bunker, they reached the structure, placed demolition charges, and cleared the position. 14 Japanese defenders were killed, with 0 Marine casualties during the assault. The platoon sergeant stood over Mitchell's position after the bunker fell, examining the custom rifle with new appreciation. He asked how much ammunition Mitchell carried for the weapon.
Mitchell had brought 200 rounds from New Zealand, matching the M1's 30-06 chambering. Chen told him to requisition more. The mail-order rifle had just proved its value. Over the next 3 weeks, Mitchell's role in the company evolved from standard rifleman to specialized marksman. He accompanied patrols, positioned himself to provide overwatch during assaults, and systematically eliminated Japanese soldiers who thought they were safe behind cover at ranges where M1 fire was ineffective. His confirmed kill count reached 11 by early December, each engagement witnessed by at least 2 other Marines, each shot fired at ranges between 200 and 500 yards. The Japanese forces on Bougainville began to realize that American positions included at least one shooter who could kill at extended ranges. Japanese tactics adapted. Defenders stayed deeper in bunkers, moved only when necessary, and avoided exposing themselves at ranges where they thought they were safe. This adaptation was itself tactically significant. If Japanese defenders were constraining their movement to avoid being shot, they were less effective at defending positions. Mitchell's most remarkable engagement occurred on December 8, 1943, during a Japanese counterattack near Piva village. A reinforced company of Japanese infantry, approximately 150 men, attempted to infiltrate Marine lines before dawn. The infiltration was detected at first light, about 6 a.m., when a Marine listening post spotted movement 400 yards out. The platoon went to full alert, but the Japanese force wasn't advancing. They were digging in, establishing a position for what would likely be a coordinated assault once they'd prepared artillery support.
The company commander faced a tactical problem. If he allowed the Japanese to establish their position, they'd have prepared defenses with artillery support. If he assaulted immediately, his Marines would cross 400 yards of open ground under fire. Artillery support was unavailable. The guns were supporting operations elsewhere. Air support couldn't arrive for hours. The standard solution would be to hold defensive positions and wait for the Japanese to attack, then defeat them through prepared defenses. Mitchell proposed a different approach. If he could kill the Japanese officers and NCOs directing the defensive preparation, the remaining troops would be disorganized, easier to assault or disperse. The company commander was skeptical but authorized the attempt. Mitchell moved to a position with clear observation of the Japanese lines, set up his rifle, and began identifying targets. Japanese officers and senior NCOs were identifiable by their behavior. They moved between positions, directed soldiers, carried maps and equipment that common soldiers didn't have. At 400 yards, these details were barely visible even with Mitchell's target sight, but they were distinguishable. Mitchell fired 19 shots over the next 40 minutes, methodically targeting anyone who appeared to be directing activities. The effect was psychological as much as tactical. Japanese soldiers who'd been digging fortifications stopped working, sought cover, and became focused on identifying where the fire was coming from. Officers who'd been standing to observe their lines now stayed prone or behind cover. The rate of defensive preparation slowed, then stopped. After an hour, the Japanese force withdrew, abandoning the position they'd been preparing. The Marines counted 7 bodies left behind in the withdrawal, all in positions consistent with leadership roles. Intelligence officers examining the abandoned position identified personal effects from a company commander and 3 platoon leaders. Mitchell had functionally decapitated the Japanese unit's command structure at a range where conventional infantry weapons couldn't reliably engage point targets. The engagement established Mitchell's reputation throughout the 3rd Division. His custom rifle, previously mocked as impractical, was now recognized as a tactical asset that provided capabilities standard equipment couldn't match. Marine Corps armorers examined the weapon, documenting its specifications for potential adoption of similar equipment. But replicating Mitchell's rifle wasn't straightforward. The weapon was custom-fitted to Mitchell specifically.
Stock dimensions matched his build, trigger pull matched his preference, sights were zeroed to his vision and shooting style. Another shooter could fire it, but wouldn't achieve the same results without extensive familiarization. The broader question was whether the Marine Corps should adopt precision rifles for designated marksmen. Standard doctrine in 1943 emphasized volume of fire over precision. The M1 Garand was designed to allow infantry to suppress enemy positions through rapid semi-automatic fire, overwhelming defenses rather than precisely eliminating specific threats. This doctrine worked in many combat situations, particularly in Europe, where combat often occurred in open terrain with clear fields of fire. But Pacific theater combat frequently involved jungle environments where visibility was limited, targets were partially concealed, and the ability to hit precisely at moderate ranges provided significant advantages. Japanese defensive tactics relied on concealment and prepared positions that were difficult to suppress with volume fire, but vulnerable to precise shots. Mitchell's success suggested that designated marksman positions, equipped with precision rifles, could provide tactical capabilities that standard infantry weapons couldn't deliver. The Marine Corps Ordnance Department studied the question through 1944, examining combat reports from the Solomon Islands, interviewing commanders who'd employed designated marksmen, and testing various rifle configurations. They concluded that precision rifles provided measurable tactical advantages in Pacific theater operations, but institutional adoption faced practical obstacles. Custom rifles were expensive, required specialized maintenance, and needed shooters with advanced marksmanship skills. Training programs would need to be established, equipment specifications developed, and maintenance protocols created. The result was a compromise. The Marine Corps wouldn't issue custom rifles as standard equipment, but would authorize designated marksmen to carry personally owned precision weapons if they demonstrated proficiency and their commanders approved. This policy formalized what Mitchell had achieved through stubbornness and luck. By 1945, approximately 200 Marines across the Pacific Theater carried personal precision rifles, most assembled from mail-order parts, using the same catalogs Mitchell had consulted in Montana. Mitchell himself continued serving through the war's end, participating in the Guam and Peleliu campaigns, where his specialized role as company marksman became standardized. His confirmed kill count reached 47 by August 1945, all at ranges beyond 200 yards, all witnessed and documented. He survived the war without serious injury, returned to Montana in October 1945, and resumed civilian life working as a machinist.
His custom rifle came home with him, officially registered as personal property rather than military equipment. He occasionally competed in shooting matches during the 1950s and 1960s, winning state championships several more times. The rifle remained functional until Mitchell died in 1993 at age 72. His family donated it to the Montana Historical Society, where it's displayed with documentation of Mitchell's wartime service and the technical specifications of its mail-order components. The rifle's historical significance extends beyond Mitchell's individual achievements. It represented a challenge to military equipment doctrine that assumed standardization was always superior to specialization. The Marine Corps in 1943 had legitimate reasons for preferring standard-issue rifles. Logistics, maintenance, training, and interoperability all favored equipment uniformity. But combat effectiveness sometimes required capabilities that standard equipment couldn't provide. Mitchell's mail-order rifle demonstrated that individual initiative, mechanical skill, and tactical understanding could produce equipment that outperformed issued weapons for specific roles. This lesson influenced post-war military thinking about specialized equipment. The development of designated marksman rifles in the 1960s and 1970s, the adoption of scope-equipped precision weapons for infantry use, and the eventual standardization of sniper programs all reflected recognition that some tactical situations required precision over volume of fire. The broader cultural impact was equally significant. Mitchell's story became part of Marine Corps legend, a narrative about individual competence overcoming institutional resistance. It appeared in training materials, was referenced in equipment debates, and shaped how the Corps thought about the relationship between doctrine and innovation. The Marine who built his own rifle and killed 11 Japanese soldiers with it became an exemplar of the kind of adaptive thinking that the Corps claimed to value. The technical specifications of Mitchell's rifle were documented in post-war studies and inform modern understanding of what precision rifles could achieve with 1940s technology. The Springfield 1903 action provided reliable, accurate operation but limited magazine capacity to 5 rounds. The Douglas barrel delivered sub-minute of angle accuracy with quality ammunition, comparable to modern precision barrels. The Lyman sight allowed precise adjustments and clear target acquisition at ranges where iron sights were inadequate. Total rifle weight was approximately 10 pounds, manageable for an infantry soldier, but heavier than standard M1 Garands. The ammunition Mitchell used was standard military ball, M2 30-06, not the match-grade rounds he'd used in competition. This was a significant constraint. Military ball ammunition in the 1940s had accuracy limitations that match ammunition avoided. Mitchell was achieving precision performance with ammunition designed for volume production and reliability rather than accuracy. Modern testing of similar rifles with period-correct ammunition suggests that Mitchell's demonstrated accuracy was close to the maximum achievable with that combination of rifle and ammunition. The psychological impact on Japanese forces facing precision rifle fire at extended ranges is difficult to quantify but appears in intelligence reports and post-war interviews. Japanese soldiers understood that American forces possessed superior equipment and logistical support. They expected to face overwhelming firepower, artillery bombardments, and naval gunfire support. What they didn't expect was individual American riflemen who could consistently hit specific targets at ranges where return fire was ineffective. This created a psychological dynamic where concealment and distance, traditional defensive advantages, provided less security than Japanese doctrine assumed. Mitchell's 11 confirmed kills on November 14, 1943, the number specified in the title, occurred during 2 separate engagements that day. The morning bunker suppression resulted in 3 confirmed kills, documented by the assault team that cleared the position. The afternoon engagement against a Japanese patrol attempting to flank Marine positions resulted in 8 confirmed kills at ranges between 250 and 400 yards. Both engagements were witnessed by multiple Marines, documented in after-action reports, and verified by company-level intelligence officers. The precision required for these shots is worth considering. At 250 yards, a human torso presents a target approximately 18 inches wide and 24 inches high. Wind, vegetation, light conditions, and target movement all affect the probability of a hit. Mitchell was achieving first-round hits at these ranges in combat conditions, suggesting a combination of technical skill, equipment quality, and psychological composure that very few soldiers possessed. The fact that he'd developed these capabilities through self-directed training with self-assembled equipment made the achievement more remarkable. The question of whether other soldiers could have achieved similar results with similar equipment was tested during post-war training programs. The Marine Corps established experimental designated marksman courses in 1946, providing precision rifles to soldiers with demonstrated shooting aptitude and observing their performance. Results were mixed. Soldiers with competition shooting backgrounds achieved performance comparable to Mitchell's. Soldiers without such backgrounds, even when provided identical equipment and extensive training, performed significantly worse. The lesson was that precision rifles were force multipliers for shooters with advanced skills, but didn't automatically create those capabilities. This finding reinforced the Marine Corps' decision not to issue precision rifles as standard equipment. The rifles required shooters who were already expert marksmen, and creating expert marksmen required time, ammunition, and instruction that the Corps couldn't provide to every infantry soldier. Instead, the Corps focused on identifying soldiers with natural shooting aptitude or competition backgrounds, providing them with specialized equipment and training, and integrating them into infantry units as designated marksmen. This model, developed partially in response to Mitchell's demonstrated capabilities, remained Marine Corps doctrine through the Korean War and into Vietnam. The mail-order rifle that Mitchell assembled for $92 in 1938 would cost approximately $2,800 in 2025 dollars, accounting for inflation. A comparable precision rifle purchased from a custom gunsmith in 1938 would have cost $300 to $500, equivalent to $9,000 to $15,000 in modern currency. Mitchell's achievement wasn't just building a functional rifle, but building one that performed at custom shop quality for a fraction of the cost. This required mechanical skill, research ability, attention to detail, and willingness to learn through trial and error, characteristics that also served him well in combat. The irony that Mitchell's personal rifle, mocked as inappropriate for military service, proved more effective in certain tactical situations than standard-issue equipment highlights a persistent tension in military organizations. Standardization provides enormous advantages in logistics, training, and maintenance, but standardization can also eliminate capabilities that specialized situations require. The optimal solution, maintaining standardized equipment while allowing limited exceptions for specialized roles, is administratively complex and requires judgment about when standardization should be relaxed. Mitchell made that judgment himself, choosing to bring his personal rifle despite regulations, arguing for permission to use it in combat, and demonstrating its tactical value through performance. His approach violated protocol but produced results. The Marine Corps' eventual response, formalizing exceptions to allow personal precision rifles under specific conditions, represented institutional learning from individual innovation. In modern military terminology, Mitchell would be classified as a designated marksman, a role that existed informally during World War II but wasn't formally standardized until decades later. Designated marksmen provide precision fire at ranges beyond typical infantry engagement distances but below sniper ranges. They operate as part of regular infantry units rather than specialized sniper teams, providing organic precision capability without requiring separate deployment of specialized personnel. The role fills a gap between standard infantry riflemen, effective to approximately 300 yards, and trained snipers, operating at 600 to 1,200 yards. In the 200 to 500-yard range where Mitchell operated, standard infantry weapons have declining effectiveness, while sniper deployment is often impractical. Mitchell's demonstrated success in this range bracket validated the designated marksman concept before it had a formal name or doctrinal definition. 79 years after Mitchell killed 11 Japanese soldiers on Bougainville, designated marksmen remain standard components of Marine Corps infantry units. They carry specialized rifles, not mail-ordered, but purpose-built by military contractors, equipped with optical sights, precision barrels, and ergonomic stocks. The rifles cost thousands of dollars, represent decades of technical development, and incorporate materials and manufacturing techniques that didn't exist in Mitchell's era. But the fundamental concept remains unchanged. A skilled shooter with a precision rifle can engage specific targets at ranges where standard weapons are ineffective, providing tactical capabilities that justify the additional complexity and cost. Mitchell understood this in 1938 when he started ordering parts from Brownells. The Marine Corps understood it in 1943 when Captain Morrison authorized Mitchell to carry his personal rifle into combat.
And military organizations worldwide understand it today when they issue precision weapons to designated marksmen in infantry units. The mail-order rifle wasn't a superweapon. It didn't revolutionize warfare. It didn't change strategic outcomes. But it allowed one Marine to kill 11 Japanese soldiers in one day, to suppress bunkers from ranges where suppression shouldn't have been possible, and to demonstrate that sometimes the equipment soldiers build for themselves works better than what institutions issue them. The death ray remained theoretical. The hamburger revealed a strategic truth, but the mail-order rifle, assembled for $92 worth of parts by a teenager in Montana, killed Japanese soldiers at ranges where they thought they were safe. Simple, obvious, deadly. Jack Mitchell died believing the rifle was just a tool, that his achievements reflected shooting skill rather than equipment quality, and that anyone with sufficient practice could have done the same. He was wrong. The rifle was special because Mitchell made it special, fitted to his dimensions, tuned to his preferences, and zeroed to his vision. And Mitchell was special because he'd spent years developing skills that very few soldiers possessed. The combination of specialized equipment and exceptional skill produced results that standard issue couldn't match. 11 Japanese soldiers learned this lesson on November 14, 1943. They had time to understand it for perhaps a second, the interval between when Mitchell's bullet left the barrel 300 yards away and when it arrived. Then physics taught its lesson, and the war continued with one less Japanese soldier. 11 fewer, actually, all killed by mail order.